Welcome to a very special episode of App Stories. Today we are speaking with three of the winners of the Swift Student Challenge for WWDC. We're starting today with Damian Perez. Damian, welcome to App Stories.
Thank you.
So, what's it like to be a Swift Student Challenge winner? What was the experience like for you?
Well, opening up that email a couple days ago, I was amazed. I stood up from my bed and full of excitement, just because I didn't really think I was going to win. I thought a lot of other people had better ideas and my design was mediocre, but complete opposite.
Tell us a little bit about what you did. What did you build for the challenge?
Yeah, so I built a iOS app called Anato. It's a medical terminology learning app. It was originally designed for my girlfriend a few weeks back, just because she's a medical student. But it grew to be much more than that. And the main focus of it was to be interactive rather than other apps just kind of being 2D and not as so interactive.
Right. So give us a bit of context, some background here. So you're 19. Is that
Yes.
correct? So how did you get into coding and tech? Like every time I talk to students like yourself, I'm just so amazed. When I was like, I see these kids like they're 16 or 17. And I remember when I was 16, I was just playing with my Game Boy. and you guys are doing this incredible thing. So how did you get started?
Well, since a young age, I was always drawn to technology, playing video games, having a whole bunch of Apple devices. I loved it. And I wanted to kind of dive deeper than that. I didn't just want to feel the hardware. I wanted to make the hardware, even make the software to it. So being a regular at online WWDC keynotes, I found out about Swift, and I was already coding C++. So, I mean, I was okay with adding another language. I just dove into that and got into that.
Do you remember your first app, like your first thing that you put together and you were like, this works?
So believe it or not, Anato is actually my first app. It's the first time I've entered into the challenge. So that's what
Wow.
really built the excitement.
Well, I mean, you got it on the first try.
Yeah, first.
That's great.
Beginner's luck, I guess.
No. So, where did the idea come from? So, like, you mentioned it was for your girlfriend, who was
Yes.
a medical student. And so, how did you identify the problem?
Well, she would struggle with trying to find engaging material. Obviously, at school, all they gave her was a textbook. And when she went to like the App Store or even to websites, it was nothing really that engaging. It was very like 2D, kind of just here's the word, here's the function, that's it. She didn't really like that. And none of her classmates really liked that either. So I knew that I can use Swift to create a solution for that problem. And that's exactly what I did.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the technologies that you used? And like in particular, is there some API or framework that you really took advantage of?
Yeah, so there's no APIs. In terms of framework, Swift and Swift UI was one of the big things that I used, but there was no specific APIs.
Right.
Everything was just kind of basic stuff.
Right. How long did it take you?
It took me 2 weeks. I was
weeks.
also taking finals during the time, so
Oh.
yeah. So
long nights?
yeah, it was
Yeah.
very, very long nights. Even points where I was just like, was pissed off at myself just because I couldn't just get the answer. And I told myself, oh, as soon as I finish this, I'm going to go to sleep. I finish it and then I do something else, and then I'm there all night.
I think that's something that we hear a lot from people who are into programming is they get an idea and they get a challenge and they have a very hard time letting go and putting it down. It sounds like that was your experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. So how does the app work in terms of what is it a study aid or what exactly does it do?
Yeah, so it's a study aid. On the very first page, you'll find a daily dose at the very top. And essentially, that's a term that updates every day. And then when you scroll down, you have a learn more. So that's like 4 additional terms that you can kind of dive yourself into. And then a couple of the other pages, you have an explore page where it kind of breaks down all the body parts per region. So that's a whole bunch. And there's a search bar at the very top to kind of navigate specific terms. And then very, very end, we got the challenge page, which is kind of like a multiple choice quiz, kind of encourages kind of like regular learning and to master those terms.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I understand that you got to present this to Tim Cook.
Yes.
What was that like?
That was surreal. That was insane.
I can only imagine. I mean, kind of paint a picture for us of what that day was like in that meeting.
Nervous, but also confident. I was standing there, and I saw him walking up, and I was like, "There's no way. Maybe it's just for like a photo op." But no, complete opposite. He was there. I was demoing it to him. He actually even looked through the app. That really built a lot of confidence in me, and kind of was like, "Yeah, this is definitely a career path I want to pursue."
It's one of those moments where you're like, you can either let the sort of the stress and the anxiety sort of take control of you, or be like, you know what, this is a pretty cool opportunity that I was given. I should really take advantage of it. And it sounds like you did.
Yes.
So Apple Park, what's it like being at Apple Park, just taking in the site? It's the first time for me this year. I don't know if I assume
Yes,
it's
it is.
How does it feel like?
It's big.
Yeah.
It's large. I mean, I've seen the photos like on the internet, and it looks like it's like this small ring, but no, it's complete opposite. It's beautiful. The orchards, the rainbow, it's beautiful.
So iOS 17, iPadOS, Vision Pro. So what caught your interest? I mean, I guess Apple Vision Pro caught your interest, but like in terms of iOS, is there, now that you said maybe this is a career path for me, what would you consider next?
Vision Pro for sure. That's definitely the way I want to take the app. Right at the moment, when you look at these flashcards, obviously it's just words. I want to make it like a 3D model that you can actually look through. You can actually split it open. I know they showcase that in the keynote with like a heart.
Right.
I want to do something like that.
That would be really cool. I think that there's a real opportunity for new learning experiences like that, because it's really, it makes it a lot more interactive. It's just not just words on a page. It's actually applying them to something in the real world.
Yeah, I assume maybe you already have other ideas for, in terms of like, yeah, there's maybe this type of app that I want to make. I mean, there's this other idea. Do you have like multiple projects in your head?
I have a whole bunch of ideas in my head for a whole bunch of different categories. Like I definitely want to make some sort of game, but at the same time, and I was speaking to one of the developers yesterday, that it's important to create an app that's for everyone. And that's kind of like the process I'm in right now, is like, would everybody actually find this useful? Would everybody want to download it?
That's a good approach. And what was it like to like meet other students, meet other developers? What's the community aspect been like for you?
Great. I mean, they're all worldwide, which I thought was insane. Just because, I mean, being from the East Bay, which is only an hour up, I'm only interacting with people that are at my school learning the same stuff. But when I speak with them, it's an experience where I'm able to gather all these different ideas and even feedback, and even like the way they think it's unique, you know?
Yeah, I found that as you know, a media person, this is my 6th or 7th WWDC, and one of the things that I always take home with me is not necessarily the announcements, because you can follow the announcements from home if you want to, right? But it's the exchange with people, you know, the talking about ideas, or you got a new perspective on a problem. And I have to assume that for you developers, you know, that has to be the same way as it is for us in, you know, on the media side. So it's great to hear that it's been like that for you. Before we wrap up, what advice would you give an aspiring developer, or, you know, maybe next year's students? What would you say to them?
That's a hard question.
Yeah. Well, that's why I kept it last.
Definitely stay curious and to stay open-minded. Technology is not going anywhere. It's going to continue evolving. You've heard yesterday with Vision OS. That's a completely different platform. Take that first step. All it takes is one line of code, and bam, you have an app. You're submitting it. Who knows what's the next step? But absolutely, I definitely recommend staying curious. Do what comes to mind.
Any final words you would have for the students you meet when you go back to school about, you know, entering into the student challenge, or getting involved with developer groups and things like that?
I took a lot of photos with the executive lead, so I know they're all going to be jealous. But shaking hands with Tim Cook and Craig was definitely a moment that I'm not going to forget.
Nice. Well, Thank you for joining us on the show, Damian.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Damian. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by SetApp. SetApp is the first subscription-based service for macOS, iOS, and web apps developed by MacPaw and released in 2017 that offers developers a source of predictable monthly revenue and seamless user experiences with commissions as low as 10%. SetApp is an efficient way to distribute macOS, iOS, and web apps. And your users will get hassle-free access to powerful apps with no ads or hidden fees. Developers get an additional way to sell their apps, too. SetApp has everything from design solutions and software development tools to photo editing. SetApp has over 240 macOS, iOS, and web apps for its users, and new apps are being added all the time. The SetApp team takes care of everything from payments and update mechanisms to content marketing and helpful support that helps developers work independently and adopt their subscription model hassle-free. Also, SetApp's rating and review feature allows developers to gather valuable feedback from users, bringing their products to the next level. SetApp shares 70% of each user's fee among the developers of the applications that a particular customer uses. In other words, SetApp calculates developers' share of profits per user separately. On top of the 70%, SetApp gives a guaranteed 20% of a user fee to the partner who brought this particular user. To sum up, SetApp vendors may receive up to 90% of the revenue from a user's fee every month. SetApp is a strong network of software consumers waiting for the next iOS, macOS, or web app to power their projects. Looking for a new audience for your product? Join SetApp and bring your product to new users directly. Grow your app with SetApp by visiting setapp.com/developers today to learn more and sign up. Again, that URL is setapp.com/developers. There'll be a link in the show notes too. Our thanks to SetApp for their support of the show.
All right, we're here at the Apple Podcast Studio, and we're back with the second student from the Swift Student Challenge for WWDC 2023. We're joined now by Henri Bredt. Welcome to the show, Henri.
Thanks for having me.
What's your? We're gonna talk about your app, and turns out you're multiple apps, which is a thing that I just discovered a few seconds ago. That you have a bunch of apps on the App Store. But before we do that, tell us about your projects. Tell us about your app that you built for the Swift Student Challenge. What's it like? What does it do?
Yeah, sure. So earlier this year at an airport, I came across a public piano. And as a child, I learned how to play it. So I sat down, but I haven't played in years, so it didn't sound that great. And I wanted to get back into playing the piano. And I had the idea I could build an iPad app that helps people read notes and play on the piano. So I did exactly that. So I've built like an iPad app that will have an interactive course that teaches people how to play on the piano, like get some basics in like 3 minutes.
All right, I love all of this. So you were at an airport,
Exactly.
and you saw a piano,
Yes.
and you got the idea for the app.
Yeah. So I sat down, I played something, and noticed that I wished I could play better. So that's where the idea was born.
That's nice. Is this a thing that happens to you frequently? Like you see something in real life and you realize that's an app idea.
Yes, I often come across like a situation where I feel like probably there could be a nice spot where I could develop an app to solve a problem. So I have quite a long list of ideas for apps in my notes folder.
That's very cool. That's very cool. How did you get started, though? I mean, when did this, when did coding really grab you as a student?
Yeah, so I think I came more from a design perspective.
Okay.
So when I was like a child, I really don't know why, but I made sketches of apps I dreamed of building. And back then I could never imagine that I would be able to actually code them. I then started studying user experience design, and I wanted to kind of turn those ideas into real products and apps that people worldwide could use. So I started learning myself how to code with Swift.
Oh, nice. So what is it about user experience design that really grabbed you and got you into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I like thinking about ways people interact with software and how the human-machine computer interaction could be enhanced. So it was quite an interesting topic for me to choose to study.
I can imagine. I mean, that's something that we see a lot. We do a lot of app reviews, and user experience, I think, is really at the core of so much of the best apps that we see, because it's more than just coding the code that underlies the app. It's how people use it, and that seems like I think that's a great place to start before you even learn to code. But when did like coding come into the equation for you?
So probably in like late 2019.
Okay.
And then in 2021, I participated in the Swift Student Challenge again, and I've been doing it every year since till today.
Oh, that's really cool.
Very
That's
cool.
really
So
cool.
how did it feel when you saw that you won this year and that you could come to Apple Park?
Yeah, it was really great. I
Yeah.
was really happy to see that. Yeah, I was super happy when I got the mail, when I was notified, especially because this year I had the chance to travel to Apple Park.
First time.
Yeah, this is the first time me being here, and it's so exciting to experience all of that in person.
Yeah. What do you think? What's it like?
It was really great, like
Yeah.
seeing Apple Park, especially like all those people there, but also the architecture, all the new announcements. It was really a great experience, and I met quite a few people. I've been pretty active on Twitter and like getting into the iOS development community,
Nice.
and was really cool to meet some of those people in real life and take some selfies.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's definitely been an experience that we had, in our early years of doing this. Because I've been at WWDC for 10 years, basically, and Federico for 6 or 7. And there's something about that community aspect of WWDC that's really unique and really fun. And there's a ton of energy here. Like, what kind of activities have you been doing since you've been here?
So it all started on Sunday
Okay.
when we were invited to present our app playground to Susan Prescott, which
Oh,
was really
nice.
nice. And once we finished that, it was really nice to hear like Susan's thoughts on our app projects. And then the guys told us like we should get ready to like do the same thing again. And then Tim Cook came around the corner.
Oh,
We had the
boy.
chance to present in front of him. So that was
Wow.
really cool.
What was that like? That was really, I gotta imagine that was really neat. Did you like show off your app, Tim?
Yeah, we had like 3 minutes to briefly cover what we have done, and it was
Uh-huh.
cool to hear his thoughts and just meet him in person.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
That's amazing. So I hear that you have multiple apps already on the App Store, and you're getting ready to launch a new one this summer. Can you tell us a bit more about the apps that you've been making and the new one that you want to launch?
Yeah, sure. So I have a few smaller apps on the App Store that are most likely like projects that helped me get there, like develop my skills.
Right.
And at the moment, I'm developing an app that is probably going to be called Thoughts. I might think about the name,
Okay.
but the main purpose is that it should help people manage and review their inspirations.
Nice.
It's solving a problem of mine because I read a lot or want to remember inspiring quotes or something like that. And I used to just write it down in the Apple Notes, but I would never actually review them. So the app I'm currently building will have like a great library with tags and a way to like group your inspirations. And there's also a today feed, which will like use your habit from scrolling through Twitter, but you will actually expose yourself to some positive content you actually want to review. So that's like the main idea.
That's a really neat approach. I
I
mean,
like
taking
that.
something that for a lot of people is a negative and turning it around into a positive. That's an interesting. What really kind of led you to that approach for that app?
I think it really was the problem of mine that I never would review the things I write down.
I got it. Okay.
So I thought about how could I go about helping people review them. So one of those ways is like the today feed, and then I'm also working on widgets to help surface the quotes like on the lock screen or on the home screen.
Yeah,
Nice.
widgets are a great way to do that kind of thing. I think it's the kind of thing that pulls. Someone doesn't have to go to your app. The app comes to them.
Yeah, and we're getting widgets everywhere this year.
So now
Got
even interactive. So I'll see what I'll do.
They're interactive, so I mean, you're excited about that? All the different things you can do now with widgets. You can put them on the desktop on macOS. You can put them on the iPad on the lock screen. What are you thinking about there?
Yeah, I think it's really great. And there's also the nightstand mode, I guess it was called.
Right, right.
Standby. Is that the name?
Standby?
Yeah, standby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would also be a great option for the app, probably. So I could just like you could have like a nice quote when you wake up, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like what you said about like sort of I made this app for me because I had this problem, and I think it's something that John and I over the years on App Stories we've heard a lot from developers. Like it all started, because I needed to sort of scratch my own itch. Like I had this problem and I figured, nobody else is making this app for me. I'm just gonna make it myself. Is that the sort of approach that you also use in other apps? Like, is that something that happens frequently to you? Like you realize I have this problem, I know how to write code, might as well just make it myself.
Yeah, most ideas are
Yeah.
born out of my own problems.
Uh-huh.
And I just figured out that if I have a problem, there are probably many other people that have the same problem too. So yeah, there could be like a niche for that.
So what's it been like to just be here, meet other students, meet developers? Besides obviously, I mean, seeing Susan and Tim, I mean, that must have been pretty cool. But like engaging with the community aspect of WWDC, what's it been like?
It's been really great because everyone is so welcoming and open, and like especially the entire community is just so great, and everyone would help each other. I remember when I started learning developing with Swift for iOS, I was at a specific point where I would just get stuck and
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out how to go about it. And I reached out to someone at Twitter, and he would just arrange a video call with me and guide me through, help me, and was so nice because like in half an hour we could solve the issue I couldn't figure out on my own. So everyone is just so nice and open to help.
That's really great. It's just so, I mean, obviously there's so much that was announced on Monday. What are besides widgets, what else excites you about WWDC this year?
I'm really excited about like Vision OS,
I bet.
and
Yeah.
especially
We are.
yeah. Especially about the interface design. I think they did a really good job at using those glassy elements, but still making sure they're legible. I think they figured out that's a great way to go about this, and I'm excited to try the developer toolkits that are going to be released later this month.
So what advice would you give for other students who are thinking about getting into coding? What approach do you think students should take?
Probably related to what I said earlier, just ask for help if you get stuck. People are so
That's
nice and welcoming
great
to help.
advice.
And also, I think like being a little overwhelmed is just part of it. Like you can't understand everything just as you start out. So yeah, just keep going and be open to discover new stuff and get into it.
Henri, I mean this in the best possible way, but you have the wisdom of a really old person in a great way. That is some fantastic advice.
It's very good advice.
And you are 18, so I think you have a bright future ahead of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 22 actually.
22. Oh, it says in my notes 18, but you're 22. Well, still, that is
Still, you're not old.
Yeah,
Yes.
But it's
Still young, but
excellent,
thank you so much.
excellent
Yeah.
advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Henri, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you. It was so nice to talk with you.
You too. Take care.
All right, and we're back with the third and final guest for this very special episode of App Stories in the Apple Podcast Studio at WWDC 2023. We're joined now by Maria Lucena from Brazil, one of the Sweet Student Challenge winners. Congrats
Thank
and
you
welcome
so
to the
much.
show.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's really nice to be here.
Oh, yeah. It's great
So-
to talk to you.
Maria, tell us a bit about the app, the project that got you into the Sweet Student Challenge.
Okay, so my app is named Lotus,
Okay.
and it was conceived out of my personal experience of dealing with anxiety. So it is a year of a lot of cycle closures for me. I'm graduating in the end of the year. I'm finishing my Apple Developer Academy experience.
Oh, nice.
And I was getting really anxious. So recently I discovered yoga and began to feel its benefits in my body and mind. So I thought that building a playground app would be a great opportunity to show people the benefits of the practice with those who may be facing the same.
That's very cool, and I think it's very on theme for this year's. We've seen the focus on mental health.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was, I mean, it's great to see, in the health app and with mindfulness and being able to track your mood and emotions.
Yeah, and like my app using the camera, it tracks the yoga positions that you're making.
Really?
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I
How?
used Apple's Vision framework. And with Vision, it was possible to recognize and compare the human body poses performed by the user with the ones that I taught my app to do.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Tell me a little bit about the Developer Academy. I'm not that familiar with it. What's that like?
Apple Developer Academy is a multidisciplinary program with, like, in my academy, there are 40 students.
Okay.
And everybody is with the same desire that it is to learn. And they inspired us to do apps developed in Swift. So we have challenges like cycles that we develop apps related to a certain theme.
Very cool.
That's very cool. So how did you get into coding and tech in the first place?
That's actually a funny story because
I love funny stories.
by pursuing a degree in marketing until last year, I knew nothing about coding.
Cool.
Okay.
I had never written like a single line of code.
All right.
And I always saw it as something very out of my reach and very connected to people related to like mathematics and things like that. But I had a vein in design, so I decided to take a risk and join the Apple Developer Academy.
Okay.
And inside the academy, I started coding, and I realized that it is actually really easy. Not easy at all, but Swift is a really intuitive language. So I've been exploring this area since then.
So you went from not knowing
Yeah.
a single line of code
to be in here.
to be in here
Yeah.
in the span of a year.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
If we give you 10 years, will you become the CEO of Apple? I mean, right? No, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
I never heard the details of the Developer Academy before, so
Yeah.
that's interesting. So how did it feel to win? Like when you got the email, like how was it?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous. I
Yeah?
didn't want to open it.
Yeah.
But it was like a really good surprise.
Uh-huh.
I felt like a feeling of accomplishment,
Mm.
actually. It was like, okay, I'm capable of doing this. And when they invited me to come here, it was like a dream come true.
This is first time here.
Yeah, first time here.
And what do you think?
I mean, it's huge, right?
Yeah, it is. It's
It is pretty
massive,
huge,
yeah.
Yes.
everything. But it was like a really good surprise being here, and the people are so welcoming. Everything is like a dream.
Yeah, I think the thing that to me is really neat about the Swift Student Challenge is it really does inspire not just people to create, bring their ideas to life, but also gives students the confidence to kind of go to the next level and make a career out of it and learn more. Is that been kind of your experience?
Totally, like my career path changed totally,
Wow,
and I discovered myself in it. It is like
that's really
Really
neat. Do you feel like your marketing background has helped you at all in this?
yeah, it helps me a lot because, like I said, inside the academy there are people from the most diverse backgrounds, so we complement ourselves. Like everything works out really well, and the marketing obviously helps me with a lot of stuff.
Sure. What was it like to meet Tim Cook?
I was gonna ask.
We haven't met him, so you
I
got to
don't
tell
think
us.
I have enough words to describe it, but it was pretty nice. Like they told us that we were going to present our app to Susan Prescott,
Yeah.
and I was already like, okay, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like one day before the dub, so
Uh-huh.
it's a great opportunity meeting the Apple Park before everyone.
Yeah,
So when Tim arrived, I was like mind blown.
yeah, I
And
bet.
I mean, I use Apple technologies and Apple devices every day. So meeting someone that is behind it is like a dream come true, and receiving feedbacks and everything from him was like really nice.
Have you had a chance to meet other developers while you've been here?
Yeah, I've met a lot of developers. Like the developer community is so welcoming,
Yeah.
and so engaged. So it helps a lot.
Yeah. You gotta hand it to Apple. They're secretive, even when it comes to telling the students they're not gonna meet a special guest.
Yeah, and what a guest.
Yeah, exactly. The ultimate guest. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would like to talk about is like you sort of been entering the space of development for the past year.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you've been making great progress in just 1 year. With yesterday's announcements of iOS 17 Vision Pro,
Yeah.
all the mental health features, what are you thinking about in terms of what you want to do next?
Yeah, I think that Vision Pro is going to be like a game changer. I saw like hundreds of millions of opportunities that we can develop in it. And today we also had a session that we talked a little about development in Vision OS. So I think that it's going to change the path of how we know things right now.
Yeah, and during the keynote, we saw an example of mindfulness, in Vision Pro. Do you think that that's a good use case for it?
Yeah, I even thought about my app in Vision Pro
I
the
bet you
moment I
did.
saw it.
I bet you did. Yeah.
So I saved this for last for a reason, because I wanted to talk to Maria about mindfulness in yoga. I just came back from my Vision Pro demo,
Oh, really?
and I tried the mindfulness experience for it's part
Tell
of
me
the.
everything about it, please.
All right, so it's this 1 minute thing where you're doing a bunch of things in Vision Pro, right? And part of the many features you try is this mindfulness environment where there's like this sphere of colored leaves, and they start animating in front of you. And as they start animating, they start spreading around. And as they scatter around you, they sort of like encapsulate you, and everything around you goes dark. And the voice in spatial audio tells you to breathe and relax.
Yeah, spatial audio seemed
It
like
felt so good. That was like when the sort of the blinds sort of came out, the demo people were like, "Do you feel good?" I was like, "Yes." So all this to say, I can only imagine like yoga, mindfulness
Yeah.
with Vision Pro. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, and like we're each day more immersed in technology. So
Mhm.
having a moment of mindfulness
Yes.
this good, it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to test it too.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's gonna be a long wait.
Yeah.
Any other technologies that you are interested in that you want to try and understand and build something for?
Yeah, most of the changes in Swift UI,
Nice.
like
yeah.
it's gonna be really much easier even for the new developers to get in it. So I think that the changes in Swift UI are really good.
I think it's interesting to hear your perspective because we've been around a lot, John and I. We've been talking to developers a lot over the years, and when Apple introduced Swift UI, there was always that sort of controversy about like, oh, but I prefer the old way. I prefer to write apps with the old system, and instead, you and the other students that we've interviewed. You're like, well, I started a year ago with Swift UI and it's amazing. And here's what I've done in a year. You don't have that sort of baggage from
That creates friction.
that
right?
creates friction.
And I think that's what's the most awesome thing about it. It's so easy. So anyone can really develop the skills needed to bring high quality solutions to life, which gives me like a lot of hope for a more accessible world.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, what advice would you give to other students? Because, especially you, I think you've come from a background that isn't in coding, and maybe there's another student out there listening who maybe hasn't started this yet and maybe is in marketing or maybe in some other field. What would you tell them about getting started?
My main advice would be like, go for it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Just dive in. There are a lot of documentations and the community is really helpful. So don't be afraid. It's much easier than you think. And that's it. I think that's the main.
Excellent
That's
advice.
great advice. Yeah.
Well, Maria, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for
Congrats
having me.
again.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you, Maria.
Nice meeting you all.
That's it for today's special WWDC episode of App Stories. Special thanks to our sponsor for this episode, that's SetApp. And thanks to all the students who joined us today. It's been a pleasure speaking to all of you. And a special thanks, too, to Apple for setting up the interviews and for lending us the use of their podcast studio. It's a really cool space, and it was a lot of fun to record these interviews there. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is also on Mastodon. You can find him by going to vitici.macstories.net, or you can find me by going to johnvoorhees.macstories.net. We're also on Instagram, where Federico's at Vitici. That's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.